All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. Again, happy Friday, you guys. I hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic time wherever you are. Hope you're staying cool because it is hot here in Seattle, and I'm sure it's hot wherever anybody else is because there's a heat wave going through the U.S. right now. It's a good day, though, because we have Joseph Woodbury with us from neighbor.com. They do storage. You know, I love storage. We own a few down in Texas, and it is a great asset class. So, Joseph, I am excited to hop into this. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gabe.
For sure. I told you before we got on here, we always like starting with stories. We like to hear how people got to where they are. So tell us, how'd you get started in storage or in real estate in general, I guess?
Yeah, we really stumbled on the concept. My co-founder had the need himself. He had just gotten married, and him and his wife were going down to South America to work for a humanitarian org. Needed storage, had an experience which I think is pretty common, where all the facilities close by to him are totally full. You know, we've got a 95% nationwide occupancy rate right now, so that's a pretty common occurrence. And
Is that, sorry, I don't mean to jump into your story. 95% for storage, that's a nationwide occupancy rate?
It's the best occupancy rate of any asset class right now.
That is surprising.
Very well.
Okay. Sorry, keep going.
And so he found a facility, but it was a 30-minute drive away, and it was going to be a lot of money. And he thought, you know, I'm not going to do this. So he went and stored his items at a friend's house instead. Fast forward 4 months later, he gets back and he's picking up his items from his friend's garage, and he just thinks to himself, this was such a better experience. I not only saved a lot of money, but I felt a lot of more peace of mind knowing my items were in a nice, clean garage in a neighborhood I trusted than, you know, in an industrial park on the outskirts of town. And then he thought, why doesn't everyone do this? If this was such a good experience, there's got to be empty space in every neighborhood in the country. How can we get access to this? Why isn't there a marketplace or a directory where people can book the space that's already available around them? So we started neighbor.com to allow people to do that. And we started with the residential side. I mean, this is people renting out their garage, their basement, their shed, their driveway. And we grew that to all 50 states. We're actually the only storage company in the world operating in all 50 states. We have active users in almost every city in all 50 states, before turning our attention then to the commercial real estate side, where we do a lot of work there as well.
Nice, man. I love it. So for people who are not familiar with neighbor.com, it is essentially, I hate saying the Airbnb of, but it is the Airbnb of storage.
Totally is.
Yeah, it is. So you can go on there and you can just rent space from anybody, really. Anybody who has space that is available to rent.
Yep.
It looks like, and I don't want to tell your business for people, but it looks like it's not just storage where you would think like you put your couches, your extra couches, your TVs, but you can also rent out space for things like boats, outdoor storage. I'm sure, well, maybe there's some industrial out there. If you guys got some equipment and you need to put it somewhere, I'm sure you can do the same thing on neighbor.com. So really, really cool concept. I love what you guys have done. You mentioned that you started out on the residential, which is just, you know, your regular Joe Schmo out there. He has some extra space. He rents it out to his friends.
Right.
But then you got onto the commercial side, which is, you know, what we're here to talk about is the real estate, people who are in this, in real estate to as kind of a profession. So if for like self-storage facility owners, I'm assuming they list their storages on Neighbor as well.
Yeah, so we have self-storage operators that use the platform. Although when I refer to commercial, I'm talking about all sorts of commercial assets. So we work with many of the largest retail REITs in the country, many of the largest multifamily REITs, you know, 20, $30 billion REITs, where we're able to provide them 7 figures in ancillary income every year because we take their, I'll use multifamily as an example. You know, we work with a $20 billion multifamily REIT where they have excess parking because the city makes them build so much parking at every multifamily unit. We rent that out for long-term vehicle storage. In addition to that, most multifamily structures they actually build storage lockers inside for the tenants as a tenant amenity. Those sit around 25, 30% occupancy. No one really knows about them or uses them. So we
Interesting.
take all of those and we quickly get them to 90% occupancy.
Huh.
So we can provide all this ancillary revenue for you as an investor. We, of course, do that for small investors as well. Like if you just own 10 rental properties, um, maybe your mortgage on a property is $2,000 a month. You make 2,300, 2,400 in rent. So your net is 20, your net is $300. We can double your net with zero additional cost to you. It just goes straight to your NOI. So it's really attractive from an investor standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned the parking lot, and that's something that I did not think of initially, but now that
Yeah.
you mention it, that makes a lot of sense. Especially for new development, you go into a city, you're building a multifamily project, and the city requires you to have this obscene number of parking spaces. They're not filled. So you use something like neighbor.com to rent that out as storage space. Really interesting concept. Um,
It's a really underserved part of the market as well. Most storage companies don't do a lot of vehicle storage, and there aren't really professional vehicle storage places out there in most cities.
hmm,
Um, so, so it's a very underserved market. In fact, it's been interesting to watch, investors as they get kind of addicted to the ancillary income we're able to provide to them. They may start by renting out space at each of their rental properties, but then you see the wheels turning, and you'll get one of these small investors who's like, okay, I'm doing the math. If I spend $500,000, that gets me roughly a townhome in Salt Lake City, which is our home market. Um, and I'll maybe earn 25K, maybe 30K if I'm lucky in annual rents. If I were to do short-term rental on that property, maybe I earn 30, 35, 40K in annual rents. But then they realize the parking revenue, if you were to take that same $500,000, that would get you an acre, acre and a half, maybe 2 acres in Salt Lake City. You'd make $100,000 in rents on neighbor. So it's just a totally, and then all of a sudden they stop buying rental properties and they start just investing in neighbor properties, which is pretty cool.
that is interesting. Um, and so let's just take, car storage is something that's kind of at a premium now. There aren't a lot of opportunity. There aren't a lot of storage sites that specifically allow cars. So the outdoor storage is becoming more popular, especially in places like Florida,
Yeah.
but elsewhere throughout the country, it hasn't really caught on. So car, I want to kind of take that as a use case. If someone has extra parking space, what can they expect per month renting it out through Neighbor?
So it's going to vary dramatically by market. And that's one of the things that we tout about the marketplace is we have the best self-storage pricing data out there,
Mm,
particularly because not just because of the volume of different spaces we have in every zip code in the country, but because we get a lot of price testing. We provide recommended prices to our users that make them 90% more likely to be reserved in their market.
mm.
But users are free to set prices at whatever they want. And so we get some users that think we're wrong and they go price 50% above what we say. And we get other users that are like, I just want to fill, and they price 30% below what we're recommending. Whereas at a storage facility, you may price test like plus or minus 10%, but you don't want to do it too much because you got to have stable rents. And so we get this high variability, like plus or minus 50% price testing in every market in the country. And so we have this perfect data on what you should be charging in every neighborhood. And so, but to answer your question, I'll give you, a couple examples. Like if you're in our home market, Salt Lake City, you may earn you're $100 a month to store a car. If it's indoor, maybe closer to, 130, maybe $150 a month. Whereas in New York, $500, $600 is very attainable.
I'm sure in New York that's pretty crazy. So is there any I'm sure it varies based on location, but is there any specific type of property that you're seeing have an exceptional amount of success with Neighbor?
So on the residential side, hands down, garages. I mean, garages do extremely well on the platform. If you have a two-car garage and you can rent out one of those garage stalls, it moves quickly. And in general, across the country, residential or commercial covered parking does quite well. It commands the premium. It's well worth, even if it's just a structure, if it's not an enclosed garage, even if it's just kind of a carport type structure, that does very well. On the commercial side, office buildings have parking garages that are just not filled because no one's going to the office anymore. We'll take
Mm-hmm.
the third or fourth floor of the parking garage and we'll rent that out. Those do very well. Um, on the storage side, uh, the spaces that are going to do the best are smaller spaces. So a lot of times
Interesting.
someone will want to rent a 30 by 30, but the sweet spot is those 10 by 10s.
Oh, 10 by 10s. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is, in my portfolio of self-storage facilities, we have five of them. I've found that to be the case too, is that the smaller units actually do better. And when I was getting into storage, I kind of thought that like the larger units would do better, the 10 by 20, 10 by 30, the really
Yeah.
large units.
Yeah.
But
Five
that's
by
really,
10s, 10 by
yeah,
10. Yeah.
that's not the case. I even have 5 by 5s, which is just this little dot of of a storage unit at a couple facilities, and they're full. People just love them.
Well,
Um,
you would not believe in some markets like if you go to New York, we have individuals renting out their closet. And those go spaces at such a premium.
yeah,
Someone can get a discount and store, at the closet in the apartment in the building next door, they will pay for it.
that's interesting. Right on, man. Well, hey, it looks like we have run through the initial time. It is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Ready?
All right. It starts with education. Could be any form. Could be books, movies, podcasts, whatever. Just give me two recommendations: one for general life wisdom, and then one for real estate.
Real estate, my go-to is Wall Street Journal. They have absolutely some of the best real estate reporting. I love that they're always digging up, new data around like I saw a chart the other day where they had all the term loans that are coming due. You just can't
Mm.
find that
Yeah.
elsewhere. And then General Life, my favorite book on leadership's book called With Malice Toward None. It's actually a biography. It's not a business book. It's a biography of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal principles.
That's cool. I read a bio on Lincoln a long time ago, but I liked it. I liked the figure of Lincoln. Actually, I've heard that he is the person that has the most biographies written on him,
Yep.
which is pretty interesting. So, with malice towards none, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Joseph who was just getting started so many years ago. Go to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
So, this exercise is so funny because you always wonder, like, would I have taken the advice? Because I think I knew this at the time, and still my advice to myself would be focus on the customer. Like, you must get close to the customer and really understand them and really use the product as they would. And every business book told me that at the time, lean startup and everything is just get close to your customer. And I still didn't do it well enough. Like, my biggest regrets in building this company nationwide every single time is that I didn't get close enough to the customer and it took us 2 years to figure something out when I should have figured it out 2 years prior if I just listened closer.
Yeah. That's timeless advice from why am I blanking on the name? The guy that owned Amazon. What's his name?
Jeff
Jeff
Bezos.
Bezos. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's timeless advice from him as well. He always was about the customer. So that is good advice. Moving us on to the next question. This is about the U.S. It is a huge place, a lot of opportunity. Give me the single metro that you're either most excited in investing in today or that you see the most potential today for storage.
For store, well, so the most undersupplied market in the country is New York.
Mm.
Now, if you're a traditional storage operator trying to invest there, very difficult. I don't know that I'd recommend. We love it because our whole business takes space that's already built and unlocks it and uses it, so we can enter that market. there's actually storage moratoriums in parts of New York, so you really can't build new storage. So that's what makes it very, very attractive for us. If you're a storage operator, um, California continues to be a great place to invest. It's kind of got the right ratio of like there is still land attainable. You have to hunt for it, but there's like land attainable, and you get these great rates.
I don't own anything in California, and I've heard their tenant laws are really difficult to deal with. I'm curious if that applies to storage as well. Do they have like a 90-day period where you can't evict somebody if they don't pay their evict, them from their storage unit? I don't know. Is that something you know?
Yeah, we do. In fact, one of the advantages of Neighbor is we perform the eviction on behalf of our users, and we do it
Hmm,
in all 50 states. And so we've got
interesting.
this automated process set up that's custom to all 50 states, where if the renter stops paying, we actually continue to pay you. So it's called our host payout protection program. So even though the renter's not giving us money, we still give you money. And then we walk through the whole process of running the auction, sending the notices, posting the certified thing in the newspaper if that applies to that market. And it's all just kind of an automated process. And so, yeah, California, I mean, they're always going to be a little more egregious than the rest of the states, but I don't think it makes the difference on the economics, 30 days in eviction, especially if you're bringing in the right tenants in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you converted me with that one statement right there that you handle delinquent tenants, because that is, as an operator, I know that is the most frustrating piece. And if the platform out there helps you with that piece, that's worth it right there. So love to hear that. All right, next question. Since you're a platform, this question doesn't apply. I was going to say, how do you find good deals? But you find good deals, you find good renters through your platform. So I'm going to move us on to the next question, which is a deal gone sideways. So not every deal that we get into goes the way we expect it. A lot of times a wrench is thrown into the mix and we get to learn a lesson. So I guess, what was a renting experience that you've had through your platform that wasn't expected and that you guys kind of had to learn a lesson through?
Yeah. So, one thing we're always analyzing is what are the right markets, particularly because we're in all the markets. It's decisions of like where to double down. Initially we doubled down on a lot of the major markets, and we just kind of assumed large cities are the same. Turns out that's not the case. And this applies to storage investors as well. Texas is a very saturated market. So Houston, Dallas, maybe, yeah, I think they're both in the top five largest cities in the country, or top six or seven or something like that. But they do not punch in the top five cities. They still punch high. They're still very large markets for us. But figuring out that cities punch at different rates according to their volume, whereas markets like California, New York, Florida, I mean, they punch, they're huge, and they punch above how big they are. So that was definitely a learning of like spending too many dollars one place versus another place. Geo matters so much in storage. So like if one thing is true, get your geo right when you're buying a deal. That's the biggest thing that can make it go sideways. Storage kind of works, right? Like it's hard to mess up storage. Of all the investments, like you have to operate a hotel and provide good service and good branding or whatever. Same with multifamily. There's more of a service provided there and a brand that you have to create. Storage, you don't have to do any of that. It kind of just works. But
That's
you
why
can
we
mess
love
it
it.
up with the wrong market.
Yeah. And yeah, it's I'm glad you mentioned Texas, because I do own facilities in Texas, and that, like, almost every single market in Texas is vastly oversaturated.
Yes.
I don't know what bug got into Texans, but when storage started taking off, they built storage. They built it everywhere, and it is all over the place. So you definitely have to be wary of self storage. in Texas. But it sounds like California, New York, and Florida are good markets to be in. So
Phenomenal.
good to hear. All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
So we try to make it easy. We're neighbor.com. You can go there. If you're a residential user, if you just have a home you'd like to sign up, you can click list a space and it'll take you about 10 minutes to get your space onboarded. We do manually review every space that's listed, so you'll be able to submit it for publish, but we'll take 24 hours to review your space and then publish it if we approve it, or send additional asks from you if we don't approve it. If you're a commercial operator, if you own, 400 properties nationwide, or even a dozen properties nationwide, then please reach out. You can reach out to our head of partnerships and business development, Sky Pove, sky@neighbor.com. You can also just reach out directly to me, Joseph@neighbor.com, and we will get you set up with a partner that will help guide you through the process of onboarding each of your properties across the country.
Awesome. I love it. And actually, I lied. That is not the last question. I do have one last question because it just kind of popped into my mind when we were talking there. Zoning and permitting on properties for storage is something that not all cities like. In fact, we have a self-storage facility, and there's acreage on the back. And we figured, this is permitted as a self-storage facility. You would think we could just park vehicles in the back there and start accepting car storage. Turns out not to be the case. The city did not like that at all, and they prevented us from doing that. So when it comes to figuring out if your property is able to store anything, cars, whatever, what is the process? How do people know that they can accept a certain type of storage when they put it on your platform?
Yep. So the short answer is you have to do your research. That's not something where I don't think anyone in the country has like some table that lists every single zip code in every city, municipality in the country and knows. So you're going to have to research your local zoning laws. One thing that is particularly unique to our platform, though, is it matters very much whether your primary use is storage or whether it's a secondary use. So if you're running a self-storage business, you're going to need to pay special close attention to those zoning laws. Whereas if you're running an office building or something, and that's your primary use, and you want to store some vehicles in your lot, that's not considered primary use in most jurisdictions, and you won't have to worry about being zoned for storage or not.
Interesting. So if you are zoned for storage, then you have to be more wary of what you're allowed to store versus if you are not, if your primary use is not storage. That is counterintuitive to what I thought I would think it would be.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the zoning. It has everything to do with your business. Is the primary use of your business? Does your revenue come from storage, or does your revenue come from?
Got it.
Just like multifamily. I mean, multifamily does this today, right? Multifamily units nationwide are built in these residential areas, but then they all build these storage lockers for their tenants, and that's a very acceptable use because their primary business is multifamily rents, so they don't have that building does not need to be zoned for storage for them to provide storage lockers as a tenant amenity to their tenants, that they don't have to worry about the storage zoning laws.
Interesting. All right. Well, hey, man, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you want to support the show, just give us a like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.